Secret friends, unite!
Welcome to the Secret Friends Unite podcast, episode 422. This is your guide to the geek side, and I'm one of your hosts, Todd Oxtra from beautiful and snowless Minnesota. My wonderful, exactly. We'll get into a little bit about our crazy world, Cobra dominated, weather dominators in full effect. But my co-host Charlie Carden he's essentially conned out. He was in a con all weekend long. Grand Rapids, Michigan had their comic convention. 3 days of craziness. He was there with his Star Trek crew. In full regalia, having a great time, raised some money for the Make-A-Wish Foundation. So Charlie is resting up, but he will be back next week when we break down the summer movie box office. But I am joined by a very worthy companion, a good friend of mine who I haven't known that very long, but I feel like we're just compatriots in the world of geek. That is Mr. Stephen Shaskan. Shaskan. Oh my goodness, Stephen, I already screwed it up. He is an author and an illustrator, also a musician, and a good friend of mine from Minnesota as well. So Stephen, welcome.
Oh, thanks for having me. This is a lot of fun. I'm Stephen Shaskan. I'm an author and illustrator of several picture books for kids, and I also my most recent thing has been Pizza and Taco. It's an early graphic chapter book series, so basically comic books. I grew up reading comic books and loving comic books, and now I get to make them, which is a lot of fun. And I'm excited to be here. I grew up with also, I saw Star Wars in the theaters when I was 7 years old. So like the original, before it was even called A New Hope and all these. And I've just always been a huge fan of comics and Star Wars and Star Trek. My mom actually is a huge Star Trek fan. So that I grew up with the original series and then progressed on to the next generation. But yeah, I'm excited to talk about all things geeky things. And yeah, that's about it, I guess. Is that good?
Oh, absolutely. And this is a video podcast as well. So folks, look at our YouTube and just see the wonderful background of Stephen's lair. I've been through Stephen's house many, many times. They have an awesome house, and just the different rooms and the themes and all of the geek goodness and the geekiness is everywhere within the house. It breathes geek. And in his, and this is in your office working space, yes, where you can see lots of cool stuff in the background. But by all means, folks, this is just a little taste of all things cool. So Stephen and I met through his wife, actually, my wife. They were friends in the writer community, and that's how my wife said, "Hey, do you want to have dinner with friends of mine?" I'm like, "Sure, why not? Hopefully they're cool folks. I imagine they are." And then to history, and we've just really, it's been great to really get to know each other better and just and appreciate all the things that are special about you guys and your talents, because you're very, very talented people. And Stephen, fun fact, just yesterday we were at Target, and what book did I see at Target but Pizza and Taco?
That's awesome.
A wonderful series. You have kids. It's awesome. Stephen is an illustrator and author at both. He is fantastic. So, Stephen will tell you all about that at the end of the show. But, and Stephen, you just got back from a big, writers, I guess it was almost like you were visiting every place in the world, talking to kids and doing your author's tour.
Yeah, I did that, and that was in February, and it's so long ago now because we've done a lot of school visits since locally. But yeah, we Random House, my publisher, sent me on my first book tour ever. So I've been doing this since my first book that I ever illustrated came out in 2009. My first book that I wrote and illustrated came out in 2011. So I've been doing this for now 12 or 13 years. And it's been, a lot of fun, and I've been doing school visits, but this is the first time a publisher actually sent me out on a book tour. And it was a lot of fun, but where did I go? I went to Virginia, Louisville, Kentucky, Chicago, and Houston. and it was just a lot of fun. I visited schools, and then in all the places except for in Houston, I did a book festival, which is really an amazing book festival called the Bookworm Book Festival, and it's sponsored by I think it's Blue Willow Books, independent bookstore there. But they just did this amazing job. They think it might be the first ever fully bilingual children's book conference ever. So this is like, and there it was it was attended by probably at least 1,000 kids, it seemed. So it was amazing. Yeah, it was just a fantastic thing, and most of them, were they spoke both English and Spanish. Most of the kids did. So yeah, so like the translations were more for the parents than they were for the kids. And for me too, because I don't speak Spanish, despite all my years of taking it in middle school and high school. Yeah.
I'm in the same boat. 4 years of high school Spanish, and I can barely speak the language as well.
Yeah.
I do okay listening and translating, but definitely not a speaker of the language.
Yeah.
So, Stephen, considering you're kind of dual-hatted, what do you prefer? Do you prefer one or the other, writing or illustrating?
Well, that's a really good question. I like. I mean, I've been really liking telling the stories lately, but I do like making the art as well. Art is where my background is. So like I grew up drawing and like comics was my big thing. When I was a kid, I had a comic called Super Grandpa. I always loved to draw. Drawing was like the thing that I did, in middle school and high school. Like high school, like I remember, like, just because I was such a jerk, my teachers, I had 2 art teachers who basically gave me an independent study for both my classes because I was such an asshole in the class. I'm not sure if I can swear on.
That's okay. That's okay. Our censors are very forgiving. Yeah.
All right. But yes, yeah. So I grew up, and then I went to Rhode Island School of Design for art, and graduated with my degree in illustration, and then I moved out to Minnesota to be in a band. So, but yeah, so art is where I come from, but writing is definitely secondary. But I still, I think I started getting into telling stories when I was creating art for children, because one of the things is when you're creating a portfolio for children's art is that you have to tell a story with your drawings. And that would happen with anything, with comics as well. You have to show that you can tell a story with your drawings, that your drawings are, it's not just like people looking straight out at you and doing nothing, and so, and a lot of times in children's literature, a lot of people will do nursery rhymes or fairy tales and things like that. And for me, I was like, I didn't really want to do that. So I just started writing my own stories. And so that's where it came out of. So yeah. And with Pizza and Taco, I like both sides. Nowadays, like with the art is so cut and paste for me now that I tend to like the stories more because they make me laugh. And I just sit around and laugh at myself and how mean I am to these characters. so yeah.
And I was looking through the book because it's just sense of humor is dad jokes. You nail the dad jokes, all the jokes about the bands. I love it. It's perfect. So anyone who is listening right now who has kids, even yourself as an adult, you can enjoy it. Illustrations are great. The puns are great. It's just really fun. So check out this book. And you know what? And I will say this, Stephen has a wonderful spouse. You guys have actually collaborated together. That's not easy to do. You got to live together. If someone did not agree with the decision, you got to say you love each other at the end of the night. So I assume that was a cool experience. And I mean,
well, Trish and I, yes, the first graphic chapter book series that I did was a chapter series called Q and Ray, and it's about a rat named Ray and a hedgehog named Q, and they solve mysteries at Elm Tree Elementary. And Trisha wrote that one, and I illustrated it. And once I started working on making my own comics, I'm 52 now, or I am 52. So like when I started working on making my own comics, I just fell in love with it again, and I really, that's what brought me to making Pizza and Taco, was making those chapter books, those graphic chapter books, because it's so weird, these terminologies. I just want to call them comics. I actually had an interesting talk with a cab driver who was concerned by the term graphic novel, and because they thought it meant it had graphic content, and like I was like, oh no, it's a kid's book. And I think that is an actual big concern in the children's book world. Are people misinterpreting the term graphic, like graphic violence, and it's like, but no, it's just like, no, graphic doesn't mean graphic means pictorial, like, which is why graphic violence is really, a bad thing, like,
illustrated violence. Is that a better term? Well illustrated, illustrated graphic. I've heard that before, because a lot of people are saying, even people that are in the medium of comic books, say, don't call it a graphic novel, it's a comic book. And so, I mean, I totally get it, because I think that was at a term. I think even the creator of Mouse, and it was a way to bring credibility. You can tell, even really compelling stories. They're not just for kids, not just capes and cowls, all those things. And maybe we're behind that finally. Maybe people just say it's an illustrated story. Maybe that's the best way to put it, illustrated.
Yeah, I know. I saw Daniel Clowes speak a couple of years back, and he was speaking with local comic book person Zach Sally, and it was at Majors and Quinn here, and it was really great because they were talking about that, and they were just like, we've had, that term came out in like the 80s, and we've had 30, 40 years to work on a better term, and we haven't come up with one. So we're stuck with it. And basically that was it, but it is kind of funny because, for instance, my books aren't a novel, like a novel is, and then there's nonfiction graphic novels, which doesn't make any sense either. There's nonfiction, and it's like, how, where do you get this? How do you make it make sense? That's why, my series has been called graphic chapter books, because it's 5 chapters, 5 short chapters.
So lots of violence in a short duration.
Yes.
There you go.
just sex and violence with a pizza and a taco.
You know what? It's kind of like that movie, Sausage Fest, or was it?
Yes,
was that the movie? Yeah. Graphic cartoon food things, antics. Yeah, and I remember that when Marvel had their line of illustrated classics, which was basically illustrating the classics in comic book form. So we've come a long way since those days. So hopefully we can stop worrying about the classification and just say it's illustrations with a cool story. Either way, and sometimes it's adult, sometimes it's kiddie, sometimes it's just goofy, and sometimes it's just punching the bad guy.
For me, I remember in the 80s. When I was collecting comics, the first thing that I ever saw that was called a graphic novel was Marvel. And it might have been before that. I'm just saying what I saw. I'm not saying what was the rule, but Marvel came out with an X-Men graphic novel that was it was bigger than the regular comic, and really nicely illustrated, very painterly looking, and very detailed on really nice paper.
Hardbound, typically, right? Was it hardbound too?
No, it wasn't hardbound. It was softbound, but it was still a thick, soft, like a real soft cover book, not like
They call it prestige format at times. It was basically a consolidated story as well versus being sequential. Yeah.
Yes, and it was and they did that for that, and they did that for the New Mutants, and they might have done for a couple others, but those are 2 of the comics that I was actually collecting. So of course I had to get them, and I actually don't own those anymore. I don't know where those disappeared off to, but I do own a huge amount of my collections over, like during that time. But I don't, for some reason, I don't have those two graphic novels.
Was that God Loves Man Kills? Was that the X-Men one?
Yes, it was. It was back when Stryker was like a religious character.
And it was Mike Pence.
Yes,
It looked just like Mike Pence. They always use that one. Yes, this monster. Yes,
exactly. That's exactly what it was.
I remember that.
That's right. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. I'm always interested in how they. I've actually been like revisiting. Well, not revisiting. Watching. Wolverine and the X-Men.
Yes,
the animated series.
Wasn't that the second animated series? Because there was also another one after that, but I remember that series. Yeah. Very well done, and a lot of people don't remember it. Yeah,
yeah. I've been watching it. It's on Disney Plus. So I'm like, oh, I'll check it out. It's actually pretty good. I'm like, oh, But I just always love this like retelling of these same stories in different ways, and it's like how It messes with my brain also because I'm like, is there a right story or is it just always too open for interpretation? And I always wonder that about it. No.
Well, Stephen, you know what? I've got to be the producer on the show, so I've got to say, this is just the taste of what we're going to be getting into, but we've got to take care of some business. And one of those things is thanking our Patreon Secret Friends Squad. These are the folks that make things happen in our Patreon. So we just want to say thank you to Best Bud Jamie Prinky, and our BFFs, Sean, Stella, and Henry Nias, Missy Merchant, and Andy Milken. So once again, thank you for this. Thank you for supporting our show, and you're making all of us happen, making us better through your support. So thank you, Patreons. And if you want to join our Patreon, check out patreon.com/secretfriendsunite. So with that, Stephen, we get to one of my favorite parts of the show. It's called I'm debuting the name of this, and it's kind of double entendre because we've talked about covers and covers that grace the same episode number of our show when we had to renumber because many comics don't make it past 400. So it's very hard to find like comics. So we just basically, let's take the last two digits. So we're going with 22, this one. But because there's a fake news site that we always make fun of, it's called We Got This Covered. I thought I would double bill it to say this segment's called We Got This Covered. So We Got This Covered is number 22 of Rom Space Knight. Let me tell you something about Rom Space Knight. Wow, he is like a licensed character that Marvel actually didn't know, but they made a comic book out of it. He took on the Dire Wraiths, these weird aliens that came on, and he crossed over with all of the Marvel stuff in their early 80s. And this comic shows Rom the Space Knight. He always had like a weird toaster head, which was kind of funny. He had a little square gun, and there was action figures you could buy of them. But it's called, basically the tagline, it says Silver Space Knight and Human Torpedo battle the ravaging Rocketeers. This book came out in September 1981. So, Stephen, considering we're men of a certain age, do you remember this comic book at your shelf or your rack at your local pharmacy or store?
I remember Rom, but like I don't remember, not necessarily this particular one, but I do remember Rom and I remembered that it was like an action figure and that they based it. Now, did they base this on? You're saying that they knew, they didn't know it was a licensed thing, or they knew, or
No, they licensed the character, and I'm not sure exactly how that happened because I can't remember. It was like Micronauts, it was Godzilla. Yeah. They did a bunch of licensed comics back in the day, the Shogun Warriors, and it's like, but they didn't own the rights. So even finding these comics, it's like you should buy these comics because they are not reprinted anywhere. Marvel doesn't own the rights, so they're not there. But yeah, I mean, and this one's
So they didn't have the rights to make a comic, and they made a comic with it, huh?
No, they licensed it.
Oh, they licensed it. Oh,
I was trying to figure out why, though. It was like, they're like, this guy looks awesome, and we're going to incorporate him in our universe, too. It wasn't like even separate. Like, Rom was like taking on like villains, and superheroes were crossing over. So it was just a weird thing you wouldn't see these days.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because when I give presentations at schools about creating comics as a kid, when I was a kid, one of the things that I actually had, and I still have all of the ones that I have, which is not the full alphabet, but I had the original Marvel Universe comics, that came out. So, A through B is number one,
I had those too. Yep. They were wonderful.
And the one that I show in my slideshow to kids is always the one with Rom in it, and it's just because I wanted to pick something that they wouldn't know, like just to show you that there's some like I didn't want to pick something that was like like the classic character. I wanted to be like, here's Rom, like in the Marvel universe, like this is something, like just because I love how those just kind of the whole origins and everything just like are laid out for you. And I think that's I do that with kids where we create a new character and we do kind of that,
it's like the Bible, right? The
Yes.
Bible of
Yes.
how you're going to use this character, what his
Yes.
traits are. And I would love it even like, I think I remember the Marvel universe of, handbook or whatever. They had Wolverine. And it's like, then they basically bisected him, where it was like, they show his adamantium skeleton too. It's kind of gross. Or they show like, this is the headquarters of S.H.I.E.L.D. or whatever. And it goes 18 levels and here's each level. And, I love that stuff. It's just so geeky and weird. And they didn't have to do that, but they knew we wanted to know.
I'm sure it's a great resource for the artists and the writers too. Just because I also I always think about that because when I was a kid, I obviously loved comics and always like kind of hoped that one day I'd be drawing comics, and I never did that. But like I never pursued that part of it. But like thinking about writing another person's character is so interesting to me. But yet that keeps going. It's kind of like it's like legitimate fan fiction, that just keeps going, and I think that's kind of interesting. It's because I have friends who do both, who do their own work and then do I know someone who does who is working on the Avatar Last Airbender comics, and so he was doing all the art, and he's local here in Minneapolis, and so
very cool.
Peter Wortman is his name, and he was doing all those, and it was like, wow, that's really cool, and just but at the same time, like not being able to tell it's just a weird thing of telling somebody else's story. It's kind of an interesting thing. But anyway.
We just had a author / editor at another press he for an imprint, and he did the DC book of lists, and it was really, that's all it was. It was like 80 lists of like the top 10 times the Joker got beat by Batman. It was like all these things. He had to draw all this stuff, and he needed all of like real facts and things. And he said, but sometimes they gave him a little grace because they couldn't even remember or they couldn't find a reference. They said, I guess it's in. And that was from DC's publishers. So you gotta love it that there's a little bit of grace there. So so folks, if you're interested in checking out Rom, the only thing I can say is go to your local comic book con, maybe your comic book shop, look in the quarter bin, and you might find Rom Space Knight. It's well worth a look.
There's no like Rom Master Collection.
There might be. Sometimes they get away
Marvel
with
Masterworks.
You know what? If anybody deserved it, Rom did. So very good. Well, that is it for our introduction of the show. But now it's time for us to check in with our gal pal, our senior news correspondent. So without further delay, Madam Webb, take it away.
Now it's time for Madam Webb's rumors and news. Take it away, boys.
Thank you, Madam Webb. Madam Webb, Stephen went to school in Rhode Island. Now, I believe because of certain rules and regulations, you are no longer allowed in the state of Rhode Island. I believe they put out I don't know if even that's possible. Like a state can actually give you a cease and desist order, but I don't know what you did, Madam Webb. But maybe, Stephen, there's pictures of her up in like convenience stores in Rhode Island, like she's not allowed. So, maybe you'll have some more information on that. But, Madam Webb, maybe you guys will basically work it out. Rhode Island is a very small state, so maybe they can be forgiving. They need everybody they can get in Rhode Island. Oh, well. With that, Madam Webb has brought us some news, Stephen. So with that, we've got 3 stories. 2 trailers, and actually a cool story about the world of ever-evolving digital publication. So the first one is the Marvels trailer. We got our trailer. This movie is coming out in November. This movie was originally supposed to come out in July, but Disney is wanting to like space out their content. Bob Iger has come back to the Mouse House and said, we're going to make this financially feasible. We're going to make Marvel content not so much all the time, so we make people actually want it and desire it more often. So they're going to space it out. So the Marvels is a unique Marvel movie property because it's essentially taking in Captain Marvel, Monica Rambeau, who has been known as Photon, Captain Marvel, Binary. No, I don't remember. I don't think she was Binary, but she's been many, many different things. But she was introduced in WandaVision in that series as well, and she gained abilities in that series. And then we also have Kamala Khan as Miss Marvel, who was just in the Marvel series on Disney Plus last year, and one of my favorite series on Marvel Plus or Disney Plus. So with that, they're now brought together because of something is bringing them together. They're linked, and that's what they talk about in the trailer. Miss Marvel has a bangle. Captain Marvel is linked to the Infinity Stones, and Wanda imbued Monica with some abilities. So it's a little bit mishmashy. We don't know how this works, but it's happening. And this looks like a ton of fun. Miss Marvel, holy cow, every time she just emotes, it just makes me smile. And it's going to be bringing all these things. Nick Fury's back. We don't necessarily know who the big bad is yet. We know it's a person that also has a bangle on her arm as well. Don't really know. But with all of this, Steven, are you caught up on all of this stuff, or is it like some of the stuff off your radar?
So I'm actually caught up on most of the Marvel things. I loved Miss Marvel too. I thought it was, I thought they did what DC has been trying to do for the past 10 years. So they did it, and they did it well. They did, a teen story, little bit of romance, but just tiny and in the background versus in the foreground. It wasn't a lot of oh, he didn't say that, she didn't say that, or what, like all the misprisions of Arrow and the Flash and all those heartache stories that are just Dawson Creeks with superheroes. So yeah, I think they just did this really great thing, and she was a great character, and I thought it was also I learned a lot about different cultures that I was like, oh, I didn't know that, and there was a lot of different things that were really well done and really and not done didactically. I think they were just woven into the story really nicely, where it was where I learned a lot as well, and also just super fun. So I'm really excited to see that she's transferring to the big screen. And I'm up to date on Captain Marvel. I'm not familiar with Rambeau as much, but I did watch WandaVision, so I know that part of her. But that's as far as I get with it. So yeah, I watched WandaVision, which also I really enjoyed. Yeah, I've actually enjoyed it. I've watched. Sadly, maybe it's not sadly. I've watched all the Marvel stuff on Disney Plus that there is in all the Marvel movies. I actually went through a time where I started to try and watch them chronologically, and I think I just did it chronologically how they came out versus.
I think that's the appropriate way. I think they always say as they produce them, because if you watch something out of order, you're going to have more knowledge, but it thematically, narratively, it's a little mishmash. I mean, even the fact that they've kept all this stuff together is really impressive. And to your point, the fact that we're essentially Captain Marvel's last movie came out in 2019, so it was like the precursor to everything ending in the big Infinity War crossover. I mean, that was the last big movie that we had as the solo character, and then it's kind of come where it is now. And so it's kind of cool to see Carol come back, and looks like she's actually kind of getting to have some fun. Because that was kind of thing missing in the Captain Marvel movie, was just a sense of fun. It was all serious because they had a mission to do it. She was an Air Force pilot, all business. And this one looks like she's just it's almost like she has to be the straight person for all the craziness that's going around her. Yeah. And it's like Lou Costello and oh God, I'm blanking their names. Abbott and Costello. Lou Abbott and I can't remember I'm messing up their first names. I love them as much. I love that comedy trope, but it's essentially who's on first. And you just see as they use their powers, they shimmy back. It's like the swap, and you can't use your powers. So it looks really fun. I don't know what the end game of this, and that's kind of a good thing. I'm glad it's just going to be a lighter fare, but we'll move things forward. Of course, there'll be an end trailer. So with that, I am curious what the end game is A lot of the characters I don't recognize any villains per se. Like we had like the Ronan the Accuser in Guardians of the Galaxy. It looks like who Lee Pace played. Looks like there's also that one woman with the bangle on her hand. Looks like she also could be an accuser with the Kree. So maybe that's where it is. I don't know.
I don't know either. No, it looked like I'm glad they're doing this. I think this will be a really interesting series, really interesting film to see. And now, is this coming out in theaters then?
It is, yeah. Okay, November 10th. Yep.
It's always interesting to see what Disney Plus does and what they're doing. You know, how they keep once again, that's cool that they're bringing somebody from the television series to the TV to the movies, because they've done it vice versa.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it'll work well. Before this, you are getting Guardians of the Galaxy is coming out in May, and then after that, you get Secret Invasion, which the trailer came out a couple of weeks ago. We talked about, and that should be a lot of fun. And that is Nick Fury focused and talking about the Skrulls, and with Marvel, the Skrull Kree.
Yes,
that is a huge galactic issue.
Yes.
And Secret Invasion is one of my favorite comic book series of all time, because it's all about who is who is what, who can you trust. And I would love to see that be a recurring storyline, because it's a lot of fun. It's spies and intrigue. It's very cool. So yes, this coming November 10th. Cannot wait for this. So get ready, Marvelites. You got something new coming your way. Something else that's coming out is the second trailer, which was new on a lot of people's radar. You know, Dracula's hot. Vampires are always hot. We got the update on Blade. We're going to get Mia Goth in the new Blade movie, which was just announced, which is very cool. Hopefully that actually happens. I know there's been some trouble there, but we've also had Renfield, which just came out, which I've not gotten to see yet, but I want to see Renfield, because, you know, vampires being funny are always a good thing. But we're getting a serious take on Dracula in the proper Bram Stoker's take. Essentially, there's a new movie coming out called The Last Voyage of the Demeter, and this is based on one chapter within Bram Stoker's Dracula. This is about where Dracula came from Europe to the to the UK. I'm trying to remember where it was. The UK, right? It was London proper. It wasn't America.
That would make sense.
Yes, I guess so. So there you go. I'm illiterate. I know that. I am not into my classics. But when Dracula had to traverse, long distances on a boat, he was put on a vessel with the soil and brought forward. And when that boat showed up, everyone was dead. So this is kind of like the lost story within that story. And it looks very...
A bit of a spoiler alert there, Todd.
Oh, I know. I'm spoiling how the movie. I get it, Steven. You know what, folks? Come back if you have not watched this classic. Watch the Francis Ford Coppola movie. See any version of Dracula you want. It's there. Dracula Dead and Loving It, I think, was even the Mel Brooks movie. But there we go. But this movie looks really... It looks like an interesting balance, because it's not too like secretive. Like, is it truly a vampire? Is it truly, because they show it in the trailer. Just there is a vampire creature. They mentioned Dracula right in the trailer. So if you're spoiler averse, don't even watch the trailer apparently. But it's on a boat. It's basically Dracula on a boat. And it's like Speed, but you don't want to die, right? It's the speedboat with these people, and they've got to survive it. You've got a diverse cast. You've got a gentleman who, and I'm just going to go through the cast really quick. Basically, the director is Andre Overdahl, who directed Scary Stories Told in the Dark and Troll Hunter, which came out on Netflix not that long ago. And it's based on, once again, that chapter called Captain's Log. The actors involved in this are Corey Hawkins from Straight Outta Compton, Aisling Franciosi from Game of Thrones and The Nightingale, Liam Cunningham, better known as Davos in Game of Thrones, and David Dalmatian, who is in the Suicide Squad. He was playing the Polka Dot Man. He was also in... the guy who kept on saying Baba Yaga and Ant-Man as well. Really fun actor is in this. And there's also, I think the most part, there is a child and a dog. And when you have a child and a dog and Dracula's involved and nobody shows up, I mean, maybe they survive. I hope they survive.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. You want the dog to survive. At least the dog.
You do, because it'd be so wrong. But this sounds like it's just going to basically they discover it, they have to survive. Was it a interesting decision to put a Smashing Pumpkins song in this trailer?
I think that makes sense, doesn't it?
You know, at a certain point, I think you get away with things like that. It's like A Knight's Tale. It's my wife and I's one of our favorite movies. It's medieval, but it has like modern rock songs, which we enjoy.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a fun movie. So sometimes you can get away with it and it works. Sometimes it just doesn't. Like, like the Marvels trailer we just saw had Intergalactic. Perfect. Beastie Boys. It works pretty well. This, The World is a Vampire. Is that too on the nose? That lyric. But oh well. They do make a note. Kind of feels like an Alien story where it's kind of a creature stalking people. I liked it. I think this could be very good. It's an August horror film. And Steven, you're a horror fan. I kind of like when you get movies like horror movies outside of the normal the time frames, because they kind of break up like the box office and all of the big things, and it gives you something a little bit smaller.
Yeah, no, I think it seems really fun. It's always good to see a horror movie in the summertime. I like to show horror movies in our backyard in the summertime. So
yes, you do, and we need to take you up on that because we didn't get to do it last time. The last cool horror movie I saw over the summer last year was Black Phone. Really cool thriller. I don't know if we call it a horror, but it was really, really well done. Did you get to see that?
I did not get to see that. Well, we showed last year. We showed Killer Clowns in Outer Space, and we showed Pumpkinhead, which I hadn't seen since I was a teen, pretty much. So yeah, I was really excited to see Pumpkinhead again, and it's like an hour and 15 minutes long, but it's a great movie.
It's a tight 1:15. There you go.
Yeah, it is. It is. It's a good story and great monster. Great monster.
Yeah, gotta love Pumpkinhead.
And it was at the time when there was no CGI. It was Stan Winston was directing, and he at that time horror movies would always be like the last very 5 minutes of the movie you'd see the monster, or maybe fully see the monster once, but throughout this whole movie, there's I know it's only an hour and 50 minutes, but still throughout the whole movie you see the monster roaming around and stuff, and a full body, and that was really at the time it was revolutionary, but the other thing is it still holds up. I will say. Yeah. It's
not like Jason where it's just a guy in a mask, right? Or Freddy with a guy in gloves and a hat. So to do something like that where you've got some artistry with the makeup and things like that, it's pretty impressive. So with this, we did see Dracula in more of a monster shape rather than the suave guy with the Gary Oldman big head, the bouffant, which I was interesting choice. It's not. It's like my Aunt Helen.
I feel like at the time when that came out, it was Coppola and it was Bram Stoker's Dracula. I feel like I was the only person who didn't like that movie.
I love that movie, but it was a feel. It was because it was like Keanu Reeves. Oh, Ted is in this movie playing Harker, and it's an interesting
between him
movie.
And Winona Ryder's performance was they were very stiff and could barely pull off an accent.
Oh, come on. You've never heard a better British accent than what they pulled off. Exemplary, taught in all the acting schools. Watch them. Whoa. You gotta pull that off. Yeah. So this should be fun. August 10th. It's by the way, Steven, to let everybody know, we are doing our summer box office competition. We do this every year, Secret Friends Unite. We put it in our Discord group. We're opening it up to everyone. It's a lot of fun. Once again, we've got more movies this year than we had in last couple because COVID's kind of essentially wrapping up and more people are going to the movies. So we're getting more movies in there. So trying to predict the box office, last year, figuring out that Top Gun was going to be the biggest movie of all time. Holy cow. Yeah. So having a movie like this in August, we didn't have that last year. So this could be a dark horse of a movie that does very well and could do just well enough to get in the top 10. So this is very exciting to me. I love prognosticating. I love games. And this is one of our favorites. So if you're interested in joining our summer box office competition, Steven, you or anybody listening, let us know. We're going to have a lot of fun with it. But going from
I haven't actually been to a theater in a really long time.
Oh, really? We just...
but I'm starting to see live shows again,
Okay.
Where it's I'll go get tickets to that. And, it's kind of that's kind of where my level of comfort is. I think also the other thing is like so many things have like immediately come to like one of the streaming services, you know, so it's like,
Oh,
I can wait. You know,
that was our conundrum this weekend. We'll talk about when we get about what we were watching. But yeah, we just saw a couple movies and we are trying to figure out which one we're going to watch. I'm like, well, which one's going to be in streaming faster? And that's typically a discussion point. But we might have chosen unwisely, but I enjoyed the movie. Oh, well, we'll talk about that in a little bit. The last story we have to talk about is actually about a new comic book publisher. And this comes out of the ashes of the old Comixology. So Comixology was kind of a pioneer in digital publishing for comic books. They're the first ones to really get everybody behind them, Marvel, DC, independents, to put their comics books digitally, not have to worry about like piracy, that you would actually be able to make money selling your comic books and also not pissing off the retailers like your local comic book shop. It went really well. And when something goes really well, what happens? Amazon buys you. And that's what happens. Yeah. Amazon bought Comixology, and they let Comixology do their own thing for a long time. They created even a service called Comixology Unlimited, which was a subscription service where they offered a great collection of every publisher, so you could kind of like just try things. But they didn't have the whole library like a Marvel Unlimited or a DC Infinite. It was just like, here's Image, and here's IDW, and here's Boom Studios, and here's Marvel, and here's DC. And you're going to give you like a couple of trades and a couple of single issues for you to try out series to see if you like them and then support them elsewhere. It was phenomenal. And then what happens with Amazon is they decide, oh, this is working great. Let's ruin it. So they went in and essentially got rid of everything Comixology based and tried to link it into like their Kindle services, which made it like a nightmare to navigate. It was hard to understand what you could purchase and what you couldn't, what was part of the unlimited service. They also created some unlimited originals, which was great. But once again, buried, hard to find. Put it on your wish list. Does it go to your like wish list that you tell your wife you wanted to buy you socks, but there's a comic book now? It got really messy. So everything dropped out. I think Comixology has improved. It's still a good service in regards to what they offer and to people to read, but it's not what it used to be. So the founders of Comixology have went forth. They left the company of Amazon and they have created a new publisher called Distillery, and of course it's spelled like with leet speak, so it's DSTLRY, Distillery. Maybe it means something else. Maybe it should be pronounced differently. I don't know. That's how I take it. It's a next generation comic publisher that aims to redefine creator-owned comic books and collectibles. So this is how it's going to be done. It's a creator-focused publisher, aims to give creators fair deals alongside company ownership. Comics will be released in limited physical and digital item drops and available online or in store at local comic book shops. So they're going to do digital and physical publishing, which is a unique format to go after, especially if it's limited, which is a unique take too, because you think of digital should be unlimited, right? You don't run out of bits and bytes. I mean, yes. It's like when people say, "Oh, we've sold out." I'm like, "How did you sold out?" It's copy paste. Oh well, maybe they're going to be. It's like NFTs and all that stuff. We don't want to get into that, but it's like it is a scenario thing where maybe they think that they can limit that and add value to it. And if you want to get it as a secondary purchaser, they're basically saying that they can come up with a way to essentially, if you choose to own it, or if you own it, you can choose to sell it. And there's a chain of custody where the creator, the illustrator, the author, I'm not sure how it always works sometimes because it's maybe the author's creation and he basically contracts the illustrator. I don't know. It's always an interesting thing. It's not always 50-50 between creative duos, as you know, Stephen, and we know with like certain partnerships,
partners get less.
Exactly. It's interesting because of that. It's a way to basically say that the creators will get residuals from the next purchase, which has been lacking in the industry, because in comics it's work for hire typically, and it's you get paid for number of pages or something like
Mhm.
that, or even a contract, but it's just that you lose rights when your character is used on the screen. You don't have any of those things unless you have like a deal with like an image where you actually own it, maybe Dark Horse, things like that. It's like Mike
Mhm.
Mignola and Hellboy, where I believe he retains the rights. He sold off the rights to have them in film, but he got the brunt of that versus Dark Horse. So
Yeah.
long story short, so this could be very interesting, how it works. And the cast of creators is pretty impressive. Scott Snyder, we got James Tinian. Let's see, I'm trying to look at Jock, Becky Cloonan, going in here, Jamie McKelvey, great writer, and other creators are involved in this. With just they've done like their own personal stuff, have worked for Marvel, so they're on board to basically create new creations for this service. So with that, Steven, if Distillery came knocking on your door versus a Marvel or a DC, and you know how they do their business, would this be more agreeable to you to do something original where you own that, you'd have ownership and get money back, or would you rather have a big check from one of the big two?
Yeah, that's a really new way of approaching things digitally in general. Just because I know, like like with the music industry, for instance, like you were never able to resell anything, and but but also once again, like what do you sell a used MP3 for, or whatever
Yep.
the file is that you would get? What do you sell a used PDF? Like it's still the same quality, like as a new one. And why would you buy new, even for that matter? That, like if there was used, that's a really, like it makes sense with like, vinyl or tapes or anything like that, because, or, even DVDs, because the more you use them, the more worn out they get. But yeah, I don't, I as a creator, that would be a lot of there would be a lot of discussions over that, figuring out like what to do with that, because I do in my contracts I have digital rights and different things like that, and performance rights and so forth, and it is interesting to find when people, like, and merchandising rights and so forth. So it's just like it's interesting, you know when people are coming to you and asking you for, you know percentages of your rights and different things like that, and for a good check or something. So yeah, I don't know. It sounds like they're coming at it from a very logical standpoint, but the other thing is, I just wonder how many, if you're in the process of buying used digital stuff, you're also probably pretty savvy enough to probably just get it for free. I don't know.
You make a great point. Now it becomes like, iTunes and things like that. And
Yeah.
I think what they said, like piracy is a weird, we don't typically try to endorse piracy. Obviously,
Yes.
if you can purchase something, purchase it. And
Yeah,
then
yeah.
if it becomes a scenario like out of print, like DC versus Marvel, or no, Justice League versus Avengers, you can't buy that book. It's not digital anywhere. It's like, I don't even know how you find that book. So it's one of those things,
Yeah.
like, if no one wants to sell it to me, I'm like, what am I supposed to do? Track one copy and overpay for it? And it's not like not the creators not even getting that money. George Perez is, passed. He's not making money off it. Marvel isn't either. So it's an interesting thing. But I think people said, like with iTunes, when it became more of a problem to buy an MP3 at $2 versus downloading it through like Napster or something, they said people would gladly pay. They like convenience. They don't like, having to do those things. So I think convenience trumps, as we found, like people just watching movies on the small screen. It's like, that's not the best way to do it. Well, it's easy, right? It's not like watching on the biggest screen. It's not beautiful because it's easy. It's convenient. I can watch it on my phone. So
even
I think
subscriptions are too.
Yeah.
Like Spotify, like I'm a music collector. Like I used to have tons and tons of vinyl. Like I don't have tons and tons of vinyl anymore. I've sold most of it off over the years, and then and I still have like a couple hundred CDs, a couple hundred albums, but but I stream most of my music now, and my music like catalogs on Spotify are like I've got probably like 50,000 songs on there, if not more, because I can just do whatever I want with them, and it's a really tough thing. Like I like, and I feel for the artists. I understand, I think the payment thing has to be figured out a little bit better. But it is that convenience thing. Yeah.
Well, not everybody has the ability to be the Wu-Tang Clan who makes one copy of an album, sells it to the guy who, what was it? He basically priced the Farmer Bro, whatever his name was.
Yeah.
And then it's like that album. It's like, wait, so Wu-Tang's not going to release that album? Did they really even have a deal with that dude? That stuff is just crazy. But you could do like one-off Stevens. Like if you look at it the wrong way, it like dissolves and that's gone forever.
Yes.
It's like you own that. Yeah. Oh well.
Well, I had a friend who actually they made albums and they put sandpaper on the inside of the cover.
Oh no! So you pull it out, it would just like.
So as soon as you pulled out the record,
oh,
you
that hurts my heart. It's a collector's. Yeah, you can never play it. Yeah, I own the rare like vinyl I own is the Bob's Burgers album that they created.
Oh, nice.
I found it and like, oh, this is awesome. So, and it's more for just like collectability. It's kind of like one of my favorite bands of all time that produced 2 albums. They broke up, Jellyfish, and they were selling like singles that you could buy. I'm like, that's way too expensive. I don't even have a vinyl player. So I'm like, I'll walk away from that one. But oh well. Well, I'm curious to see how this works out. I'll let you know, Stephen, if they if there's any feedback from this and how it goes. Maybe it becomes like the fire that sets all publishers lit, and then creators get more ability to make more money as they create, which is always a good thing.
I will say from my standpoint in the children's book world, since digital came out, there's the threat of never having a job and I never, or like losing all their money and everything. But in the children's book world, like when I sell my books and I get my royalty statements, I'll have like 3 digital downloads.
Yep.
And then umpteenth amount of like hard copies. So in the children's book world, at least, I think books are still well alive, and that's nice. And for me, especially with comics and everything, I always teetered on like getting the Comixology and the other ones because of the unlimited possibilities. But I don't actually like reading on screens, and I'd rather like I like the old paper and everything's and looking at the art that way. Just because it's what I'm used to. I'm old, but yeah, I have nothing against it. It's just for me, it's like I'd rather have comics in my hand.
It's so funny because I'm also old, and I love the guided panel, the ability to increase text font size, read it that way, and so it's kind of, there's always a way to go, and people do that. And like when I went on my trip to Europe, I read a lot of books and things. I'm like, I couldn't take all of those with me, and they're kind of nice to have with me. So that's what's great, flexibility. Everybody thought Amazon was going to kill bookstores. Guess what? People still prefer reading a book, and I have a book right next to me, but I can't pull it out because it's behind my monitor. Oh well. But that is it for the news segment of the show. So with that, it's time for us now to go to our favorite establishment to get some drinks and talk about the geeky stuff we're loving, and that's the Geek Easy.
Talk nerdy to me. Talk nerdy to me.
We're sitting the Geek Easy, drinks are poured, and we are ready to get our nerd on. So, Steven, what's going on in the world of nerd that you're enjoying these days?
All right. Well, how about I cover the stuff I'm enjoying? I wrote you a long list of things, but I'll do the things I'm enjoying most. I've been looking at all the uncanny X-Men, and that's been a real fun thing to do because this is right about the time that I started collecting. So I started reading them from 100 up. And that's been a lot of fun just to see, because I'm at a point where actually I think I own most of the comics now. This goes to 159, 151 to 159.
Is that a specific arc? Is it like just a?
Well, this is it's past. This is the this is the arc that talks about Starjammer being Scott's
Oh, okay,
father.
got it. With
Yes,
Corsairs and the
yes,
and the
yes.
Shi'ar Empire and the X-Men in
Yes.
space. X-Men in
X-Men in space,
space.
exactly.
Yes.
So, which is really interesting because this is like before I started really collecting them,
Yeah.
and so like it's kind of like this like really interesting storyline. It was at a time when my friend was like showing me the comics, and I remember seeing a lot of these like drawings and everything, but I didn't own any yet. It was before that, so I've been really interested in that. The other thing is I'm kind of just revisiting my whole life in comics. So in college, favorite one was 8-Ball Comics by Daniel Close, and they came out with the complete 8-Ball.
That'll give you a carpal tunnel holding that bad boy up.
Yes.
So they call it, what they used to call it was like the phone book. Like Cerberus used to have the phone book versions where it was like, it was thick, heavy, not always. And now I'm hoping those are a little bit more high quality than the Cerberus ones, because those are just like the cheapest.
No, these are nice.
Yeah. Okay,
these are nice, but these did not go to Mexico with me on the trip. And the same thing with this. I revisited ElfQuest.
Oh my goodness, yes, one of the original indie comics.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so I grew up in upstate New York, and so Wendy and Richard Peeney were from Poughkeepsie. Warp Comics, Wendy and Richard Peeney, WARPR.
Yes.
So anyways, that was really fun to actually revisit, because I hadn't seen those since I was a kid, and they actually hold up pretty well. A little text heavy.
Sure.
But like that was comics of the time, and the artwork is amazing. Like the ink work is amazing. It's
the world creation is just so cool too, because it's like elves, but it's like you've got the wolf tribe and you've got all these different ones, and it always frustrated me that world and that property never got really acclaim outside of the small medium of comics. It would have today. It just at a time it just. Yeah.
I'm surprised that even to this day that someone hasn't tried to, like, someone of a Peter Jackson status or something, has not tried to acquire something like this to make it into something, because it's all there.
It's all there. Yeah.
The ending gets a little like the last couple get, like speed along a little bit too quick. This is just the original series. I don't think I actually continued it further than the original series. My sister actually is the one who collected them, but I always read them as well.
It's very female friendly at a time when most comics is like, no, we don't have female lead characters, or they've got to be like sexy or something like that. This is like, it was pretty much male female equal level.
And she did work for DC a little bit, and a couple other things. And Wendy Peeney she was also known for dressing as Red Sonja at Comic Cons and things, which I just like. I looked her up recently because when I was reading these, I was like, oh, that's so interesting to find out about these. Because they were this like thing where it was like, and they were touted as independent comics at the time, but like just so legit. I mean, like the quality that they were putting out was just amazing at the time, and even by today's standards. So yeah, I did that, and other than that, I like television wise. I will say the thing this season that I've been enjoying the most has been Picard.
Yes, absolutely.
And, I've been watching all the Star Wars stuff. Andor was amazing. But more recently, Mandalorian, it's kind of up and down for me this season. I'm still happy with it, but yeah, Picard has been just killing it, and I will say, like, I stuck to the first 2 seasons. The first one was okay. The second one was like, oh crap, they're going back in time.
It's like, are they going to throw anything else at the wall to see if it sticks? Oh, remember this plot line we didn't resolve? Here it is. Boop.
Yes. And I feel like it almost, the second season almost did the third season a little bit of disservice right now. So we'll see. Hopefully, like the Borg aren't all sweet and nice now.
That's right, because of the new Borg
because
Queen.
Of the second season. Yeah, they went back in time to make the Borg nice. So we'll see. Maybe this is a different space-time continuum, like, I don't know. But I hope it's not that, because that would be a little bit like, I like the Borg kind of more evil.
Yeah, you don't want to overuse a good villain because they
No.
once again become too familiar. They become like not a threat anymore. You take away their teeth, like Q or certain things like that. Lore, the Romulans, all of those things. So I've been very happy with season 2. Charlie, who's obviously on here, he is all in on this, and it's great. It does be. He's always said the last time we got the TNG crew together was Nemesis. Not a good movie, not appropriate. So now we're all back together. I always thought, well, maybe they'll bring back, certain other characters or certain things. And so they could always do that. And he was always hoping that we would get a spin-off series from Picard with, let's see, 7 of 9 and the other captain, blanking on his name.
Yeah, I know who. Yes.
Who, unfortunately, no spoilers. That is not going to happen, folks. But
yes, I know
there could be a really good because right now with Star Trek, it's an interesting space because we've got the far past of Strange New Worlds, we've got Discovery, which is ending, but it's in the far future, and we don't really have anything in this time frame. So it could be cool to have an ongoing series with 7 of 9 or parts of TNG crew continuing to do cool stuff.
Yes. No, yeah. I really enjoyed it. It's been fun this season, and they've been doing it right, which is really interesting because like I said, the first 2 were okay, and I enjoyed them both. But but this one is definitely like I think, and including all the characters too is always fun to have all the original characters and everything. That's been a lot of fun too. But yeah, I don't know. That's mostly what I've been consuming. What have you been consuming lately?
Well, it was funny because I was in Europe like the last 2 weeks, catching up on things. So I really haven't had a lot of new things. I watched a lot of bad movies on the plane. Steve and I watched my first Fast and Furious movie. Watched number 5 because it was on the plane. Wow. That's all I can say. I was like, whoa, these are way too popular for what they are. But that's okay.
Yes, they are.
It's okay. It's okay.
I actually went through them at one point, I think last summer, to watch something before I fall asleep.
Yeah, so I finally watched my first one. I may see the next one. Who knows? I don't know. They're just silly movies. They're not on my radar for the most part, but oh well. But I did watch 2 movies this weekend, one with my son, one with my wife. It was my birthday weekend. Got to just have a good time as I'm recovering from the European trip. So I saw Super Mario Brothers movie, not the one from the 90s, which was not very good. But we all watched it because that was all we got with the Mario Brothers. Well, this one's an Illumination film, partnered with Nintendo, and they essentially gave us a video game on screen with Mario Brothers. I don't want to give any away spoilers, although I don't know if you can really give away spoilers. It's Mario Brothers. They're jumping on mushrooms. Jack Black is King Koopa, or Bowser. Sorry, Bowser used to be King Koopa. His name has changed through the years, but it was fun. I think the animation was really vibrant, beautiful. The story was plot light. Mario was the main feature. Princess Peach did get quite a bit of screen time, which was great. And she had a lot of, she was definitely the most capable of the characters where she could kick butt, do all these things. Jack Black was great. Chris, the Chris in this was adequate. And it was funny because I'm blanking on his name. Seth
Rogen? Oh.
Yes, Seth Rogen. He didn't even try. He just did his own voice as Donkey Kong. And so why not? Yeah. But it was fun. There is a extra credit scene at the end. Not really worth it staying for, but it was what it was. It's a cute movie. That's the best thing I can say about it. My son and I were pointing out like little spoilers and Easter eggs and things like that. So we had a good time. Son and child, it was a good time. Not a great movie, but fun. That's the best way to put it. But the movie that I did see that was really, I was worried about it, and that's Dungeons and Dragons: Honor Among Thieves. I
really want to see this one.
Okay, so I was traumatized by the 2000 Dungeons and Dragons movie
with the Wayans brothers.
With the Wayans brothers and Jeremy. Oh God, I'm blanking on names. I'm horrible with names. Jeremy.
Irons
was a bad villain. Yeah. horrible films. This is where I go back to say fantasy is hard to pull off in a good way, either serious or even funny to get it right. And we are in a good space right now where are getting quality fantasy, but it's typically been on the more serious side. We are getting like, I'm not sure if you're familiar with the, there's an animated series now on, I believe, Amazon. It's Critical Role.
Critical Role. Okay.
Yes. And it's that's been a darling for them. Critical Role is like a D&D live podcast. They get a group of voice actors together and they just have fun. They play it like it's a Dungeons and Dragons adventure. Well, that's gone off into like graphic novels and an animated series, and it's highly loved and it's a huge fan base. So Critical Role, if you're into that thing, and from an animated style plus also like a live action D&D, that type of thing, it's out there. And they've managed the funny fantasy. So definitely check that out. We've got The Witcher, which has done pretty well, and that's also a video game. It's kind of a weird property, but I like that as well. It's not as good as
I've enjoyed The Witcher. Actually.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It's fun.
And they actually had this spin-off recently.
Yes, which was not as good.
No, it wasn't. But I watched it.
yes. I had my hopes up but the animated Witcher one, I would highly recommend that. So there's an animated Witcher as well on Netflix. So so I think at this point we're in a good space for fantasy medium, which is great. Really love this because I'm a fantasy kid at heart. Excalibur, I think it was Excalibur, maybe Dragon Slayer, maybe Beastmaster if you would indulge yourself. That Sword was about it. Yeah, Sword and Sorcerer. So just there weren't great fantasy things back in the day. But now we're kind of in like this. They're doing it right. They're paying the properties correctly, and that is Dungeons and Dragons: Honor Among Thieves. This movie was awesome. It's well written. The people that wrote this did like game night. They did other things that actually include good writing, good comedy, and heart. The cast was fantastic, and this is basically just gathering a team together to pull off a job. That's what it's about. Chris Pine is doing his Chris Pine, personality. He's great. Gina Rodriguez. I'm blanking on her name. Once again, I'm bad with names, Stephen. You'll get this. She was in the Fast and Furious films. The tough chick who's loves Vin Diesel. She's the barbarian. She is phenomenal. She's got really good personality in this as well. You've got Justice, blanking on his name, but he was in Detective Pikachu. He plays a mage, a sorcerer, and you've got a lot of other actors. But the great part was Hugh Grant played a villain, and he was phenomenal. He was just chewing the scenery. He was really well done. The fight scenes were amazing. I thought they were great. The fan fiction, the fan service to D&D was great. Like the gelatinous cube, the imitation chest, the mimic was great. A lot of the animals, the owl bear, the druids, it was great. I really, really enjoyed it. The paladin, Reggie John Paul, who was in Bridgerton, was amazing. Awesome. Really, really good. They nailed it all. I'm just disappointed this movie isn't doing better. Should have come out at a different time, maybe January, or even August of last year when nothing was coming out. Would have done much better. But it's really, really well done. Great sense of humor. Really handled well. I couldn't recommend it enough. It's just a shame that it's probably not going to do well.
That's great because I've been hearing nothing but good things about it. It's the one movie that I actually do want to see as soon as possible. I've just been recently thinking about the whole fantasy thing too, and one of the things was I'm on like a Facebook group or something that it's like sci-fi fantasy art, and it's all like the classics like the Frank Frazetta and then Boris Vallejo or whatever, and like and it's like looking at that, it's like. This is why fantasy films have sucked so much. Is just none of them look this good, and it's really hard, because even like the Conan movies and things like that, which had budgets and everything, they just don't have the feel, the atmosphere, like the look, and I was like somebody really, like Game of Thrones does it fine, and there's things that do it just fine, but like to bringing it to the level of what fantasy art is, it hasn't really done that, which is kind of interesting. Like that film hasn't, they haven't done that quite yet. I think they've done it in space films a lot more than they've done it. And even like the fantasy that's involved in like Mandalorian, for instance, and Star Wars, those films with the beasts and so forth. I think they've done a really good job. So yeah. Anyways, I was just thinking about that.
Yeah, it's to your point. It's interesting that people think of like, well, it's fantasy, it's old school, so that couldn't have happened because that's past history. Where they think of science fiction, well, that could happen. Laser guns and beasts that are aliens. So aliens are more believable than like dragons for some reason. It's a weird premise, and typically people have not. They take themselves too serious when it comes to fantasy, where like, Tolkien and things like that. It's like, it's too rigid, where it's sometimes you got, in Game of Thrones, like, well, we don't want the magic and the creatures to derail us from people like appreciating like a real work of art. So we're going to downplay that. And I feel like The Witcher, they don't downplay it. And I feel like this, they didn't downplay it, which is good. So
yeah. I'm excited to see that one. I definitely, yeah. And it's funny too, because I when I was 12, I was really big into like Dungeons and Dragons, but I think it was much more from the art standpoint, and and also creating, like we talked about earlier, with creating your characters, like creating like with Rom, and all his origins and everything, and like that type of thing. You got to do that with like you'd roll some dice and make up a character. It's like, oh, I've got a wizard now who's a cleric, not a wizard, a cleric with magic powers, and like that, or a thief, and like and then I would draw them, and so like I felt I really liked that part about it more than actually playing the game. And I also, at one point in my life, during that time, I had written, I think I had like 98 pages handwritten of my own dungeon design, and it was like 7 islands that you had to go to, and I created my own monsters and everything. I remember one of them was Mind Snow, which was snow, but it was really a creature. And it would land on you and then go into your ear and, take over. That was one of them. Love
it.
Copyright, TM.
Exactly. If you see that, please let Steven know and call his lawyer. And there's like I said, there's lots of Easter eggs, especially if you were a big fan of the Dungeons and Dragons cartoon series from the early 80s, which I was. That was Todd's bread and butter. Love this. And there's a lot of really fun stories about that. And apparently the people who wrote Dungeons and Dragons, the cartoon series, wrote a unproduced finish to that series because it was never finished. So seek that out if you want to. So there you go. So that is what we're geeking out about this week in the world of nerd. So now, though, it's time for us to go to the land down under, visit Tina and the mutants, because it's time to enter the Thunderdome.
Welcome to another edition of Thunderdome!
Thank you, Tina. The mutants have been gathered for a topic or a game to be entertained. And this week, we're doing a topic, and that is dream adaptations. So we've covered this in the past, but it's always good to bring in a new person who gives us their perspective on in a property that you love, but it's like, how would you like to see it done differently or in a different medium? So with that, and then we're going to get into something a little bit more. Maybe we should do this, Stephen. Let's go with you. Let's start with a little closer to heart. So if someone said, Stephen, we want to do pizza and taco. We want to adapt it. How would you want it to be adapted outside of just on the page? Comic book, CGI animated, I don't know. Could you like a live, like a Roger Rabbit, a video game? I mean, audio, like an audio adventure, Saturday morning cartoon. What would you like with one of your creations? Doesn't have to be just pizza and taco.
Wow, pizza and taco. Well, pizza and taco right now has actually been they've created, there's a company out there that has created a Bible for it to become a television series. That does not mean that it's going to be one, but it means that someone's interested in doing that. And so there is some pursuit of that. After seeing how television works and how these things work, I'm like, I'm okay with them being as books. I kind of like the idea of the video game. I think that sounds like a lot of fun, and kids would really like that too.
Well, yeah.
I just I think the problem with with my book is that it falls into a different category because I use a lot of like what I call digital collage. So I'm using photographic images as well. It's a little bit like my favorite kids show of more recent times was Gumball, The Amazing Adventures of Gumball.
Great
And,
show.
Yeah, and I love the characters on it, and I just love how they just did this mixed media, like, and it works. Like certain things are this and certain things are that, and it just it's all doesn't make any sense. There's a fish and a cat that live together that are brother and sister, and their dad is like, a rabbit. Their sister's a rabbit as well, and their mom's a cat, and it's just great. And but yeah,
And to your point, I was going to say, because you say mixed medium, it's like when I look at pizza, it's an actual pizza image. It's not like you illustrating the pizza. It looks like a real pizza, which is kind of cool. I mean, like, that's neat. I'm like, I wonder how he did that. Because it's like, I've seen that with animation where it's like, oh, it looks like it's a constant like texture or something, but it moves. It's not like an illustration. It's almost like a texture put on it that is a thing. That's cool. I like the fact that you incorporate it because it adds some like different texture to it.
Yeah, and I think it also helps the book stand out a little bit. Kids are really interested in that because, like, they're simple drawings, but the actual drawing of the pizza and the taco are very simple. But then, to add that texture to make it something different is nice, and it helps it stand out. But yeah, and to make that as animation is a different thing too. You would have to have people who are more dedicated to that type of thing. But yeah, I just really love these as they are. So like, I'm always happy. But I would also love to see, them do one, my editor asked me at one point, to just write up like as many different ideas for pizza and taco as possible. And I did come up with, I came up with like 50 different ideas for books, and we're slowly going through them. But one of them is Pizza and Taco Star Wars Episode 10. Nice. So maybe I could see that too. That would be a lot of fun.
That would be, and I just picture in my head the video game version. It's like a turn-based RPG. It was like you're gonna throw out like I don't know if this works because it could be cannibalistic, but I'm like pizza toppings. That could be your like projectiles, like you get to do that, or it's like pizza cutter or something like that. And then taco. It's like taco. It's like I don't know, gas because you think of like refried beans. It's like because it's kids' humor. It's fun, and it's like you're taking on different enemies. I don't know who they have. It would be like maybe some goofy like lunch ladies or something that want to serve them to kids.
Is there arch nemesis right now?
There you go. So I think it just writes itself. Something like that could be fun. Plus, it's like comedic versus violent, and you could do that. Yeah.
Yes.
Well, very cool. Well, and since I have no creations, I can't say how I would adapt them. Let's get into the properties though that we do not own. How would we want to see them adapted for another format? So, and so when I said format, it doesn't have to be that. It could be in the same format, but a different take. So, let's start with you, Stephen. So if you had your druthers and you were a Hollywood exec and say, hey, I want to do this, but I want to do this, what would it be?
My biggest pet peeve, I think, over my lifetime has been the Wolverine series, and and I think they keep trying to make it, and I just would love if somebody. This is just me too, and it doesn't have to be Hugh Jackman. It could be anybody. It could be a new person playing it, but I'd love to see them actually just like almost frame for frame, like recreate the comic, the 4-part miniseries from the
Frank
80s.
Miller.
Yeah, the Frank Miller comic, and just do it. Like you've got it. It's all storyboarded for you. You can go boom, boom, boom. Shot number 1, shot number 2. Here we go. Like, let's just do this. And it would be really nice. And just like that, even with that kind of quality of just look to those books as well. Like, because it was Frank Miller, and I'm spacing on the inker because
Is it Klaus Janson?
I'm not sure.
He's typically my go-to anchor.
Yeah. But yeah, no. So yeah, inkers matter, was it Mike Royer from when he did the Jack Kirby's work, it was way better.
The old joke in Walt Mallrats. Oh, you're just a tracer. No, I'm not. I give depth to the image. Come on, man.
Yes. Inkers matter.
They do.
Yeah,
they do.
Yeah, I think that would be my big thing. I think the first X-Men was all right of the movies, but I don't think they've done a good job of incorporating him into the Marvel universe. I was actually surprised that they did Doctor Strange, because like that was one that I was hoping for, because that was one of the comics that I collected as a kid, and I never thought I'd see that as a movie. That was really strange, literally. And but yeah, no, I think, and it would always be nice for them to actually make a good Fantastic Four movie.
Have you seen the Roger Corman Fantastic Four?
Yes, movie? I have.
There you go. That was actually kind of like conceptually probably the most faithful.
Yes.
But Roger Corman, of course.
But yeah, I love that he's talking in the mask the whole
exactly.
house.
And then you've got like the Mr. Fantastic's arms, like somebody's holding a pole the backstage, but Thing looked pretty good. I'll give him credit. Yeah,
and Thing doesn't always look good. That's true.
No, hard to pull off. But yes, we are going to get a Fantastic Four adapted, and in the short term, we are going to get X-Men 97, so essentially a sequel to the X-Men animated series. And then with that, I have no clue when we'll see the X-Men, to be honest, because we will see, though, Wolverine in Deadpool 3. So that's already known. So that will be happening. But I have no clue if that's just like a throwaway and it'll be part of like the multiverse. Who knows? So, but yes, I am a huge X-Men fan. Logan is named after Logan. Yes. Wolverine. They were my gateway. My first X-Men comic was 178. My favorite X-Men comic is when Colossus and Wolverine fought and the Juggernaut showed up in the bar because they were pissed off about the way he treated Kitty Pryde after Secret Wars. So that's my favorite comic. And then Selene is a backstory where she's like, I just love that. Love it. Yeah. Oh, well, I could geek out all day about that. But very good. Well, my adaptation, I have a couple that I love. And it was funny because a lot of them are actually happening, which is just the scary part. As a geek, I never thought I would see certain things happen. But there's two properties that I don't know if they'll ever happen, to be honest. It's up in the air. One of my favorite fantasy novels is the Xanth series. Piers Anthony wrote that series. It's basically a mix of fantasy and puns. So it's like mixing those two worlds in a very fun fashion, very well done, about a world of Xanth where everybody has a magical ability of some sort. And that kicks off the series where there's one person who does not have a magical ability. If he doesn't display it, he gets banished into the world of the mundanes. And that's kind of how the whole series starts. And it goes on for like 30 books. It's way too long. Never finished it because it was just too many, but very fun. Like they would make fun of puns. They like have a shoe tree would actually be a tree that grew shoes. So it was to me as a kid of like 10 years old reading it. I'm like, this is awesome. Oh, great. And a little sexiness to it too. So I enjoyed that. So I would love to see that. It has been a video game. It has been like adapted into comic books, but I always thought that would be a lot of fun, like as an animated series. Because once again, it's light fantasy. I thought that could be handled very well. Don't know if it'll ever happen. Probably not. Because I think just things fall off the mat. And it's been around since the 70s. So probably not. Another one that I loved is called the Myth series, which is great. It's a fantasy series. And every book is called something with myth. So myth adventures, mything persons. So, and it's a comedic fantasy series about a demon who comes in, who is actually summoned by this wizard to scare the crap out of his apprentice. So basically, because he's learning, he wants to teach him, how to defend himself. And he and this demon are good friends because the demon's actually not a demon. He's just another person from a dimension. So demons in this world are just people from another dimension. They're demons. Dimension, demon. Got it? Fun. But the wizard dies, and then he traps the demon here without abilities. And that's the whole premise. And then he has to guide him and they become buddies. It's like a road show where they basically he tries to teach him magic, but he can't. And then it's like, but it's once again, it's comedic. Like there's a fairy godfather who's also a mobster. And it's just jokey. It's funny. It's good. It's every chapter opens up with a different quote. One from from Darth Vader or something like that. So it's clever. It's very fun. Once again, has been adapting graphic novels. I don't know if it'll be readapted. I would love to see that basically be potentially, once again, an animated series. I don't know if it would work it might work for a TV series though. Who knows? Maybe like almost like a sitcom fantasy, like Disenchanted, that Macaroni series. So maybe that. And then the last one, this might happen. Raymond E. Feast is my favorite author. I actually interviewed him on our podcast. He's fantastic. He wrote a series that's very serious fantasy, but isn't just about the politics. It's also about magic and things like that. He's a contemporary of George R.R. Martin. They are friends. And his series is less well-known, but it apparently is going to be adapted into some type of TV or movie series. I would love it. It's to me, it's one of the best series I've ever read. It's riveting. It evoked emotion out of me, which typically fantasy doesn't, because it's kind of silly at times and it's not well written, but this was. So I would love to see it. The only thing that's been adapted, it's been adapted in graphic novels by Marvel. It's also been a video game series. It was funny because that's actually how I got into the series of books, is I played the game. It was a computer RPG. I'm like, this is really it's a cool world. Well, it was a cool world because it was already adapted and developed from a book series. So that was really cool. So that's where I would like to see. I don't know if any of those things will happen, but if they did, it would be awesome.
Yeah. I'll say that, Elf Quest once again too would be amazing to see somebody do that. Even like animated would be great. But yeah. But no,
like you said, it's all there, and they don't have to go through different publishers or everything. It's probably, I believe they still own just the rights, so they wouldn't have to worry about that. So they could just go right to the creators, and
yes,
it's perfect.
It's there.
Absolutely.
I think DC at one time did buy them out, though.
Oh, really?
Because there was a series. I think not the first series, but the second. When they started, I think DC started putting them out at one point. But I don't know how long that lasted.
Got it. You see that a lot. Yeah.
I just remember actually seeing the little comics and stuff like at one point where I was like, because they started off, they were like, a little bit bigger. They were like 9x12 or something like that, the size of comics. But then, anyways, this
very
is
cool.
Awesome.
Well, that is the show, folks. I want to say thank you, Stephen, for being on. This has been awesome. You and I can talk forever, and I'm glad we were able to bring your passion, your insight, and your interest to the show. But with that, tell people how they can learn more about you and find the things you're doing.
Well, I'm StephenShaskan.com. So that's Stephen with a PH, and then Shaskan is SHASKAN, and that's .com. So yeah, I'm there. And anywhere else where you can find me. My books are available wherever books are sold. Pizza and Taco has been a lot of fun because it's been in Target even and Costco this year. That was a lot of fun to see the box set in Costco. The next book comes out. It's Pizza and Taco Dare to be Scared. And that comes out in June 27th. And Pizza and Taco end up going on a ghost pepper hunt. And so I'm having a lot of fun with that.
Love it.
So yeah. Other than that, you can like I said, I'm on Twitter and Instagram too, and everything, and Facebook, all those things. I'm on it all. I'm the only Stephen. Well, no, there's one other Stephen Shaskan. He's a dentist. He's related to me. He's out in Washington D.C. So if it says Stephen Shaskan DDS or whatever, that's the wrong Stephen Shaskan.
Love it.
I get emails on occasion about dental supplies and things all the time. So yeah.
If this writing thing doesn't work out for you, Stephen, look into dentistry. There we go for that. Well, awesome.
Thank you so much for having me. This has been a lot of fun.
Yes. And you know what, folks? Stephen is an author and he visits schools, libraries. If you want to have a special visitor, request Stephen. He's awesome. Yeah. His wife, Tricia, also, you want two for the price of, two.
Yeah.
Invite them along.
They're a little
both
more than
awesome.
the price of one. But
Oh,
not too
that's
much
true.
more.
Yeah, you know, buy one get
There's a
one.
deal.
Yeah,
There's a
buy one
deal.
get one. Yeah, exactly. Buy two get two. Yeah, request them to come and visit your school and your library. They are awesome. The kids will have a great time, and they'll want to read. And that's the biggest part about this.
Yes, it is, and they'll have a lot of fun too.
Absolutely,
Yes.
absolutely. Well, with that, we end our show. And as always, I am Todd Oxtra, T Oxtra on Twitter, talking about all things just nerdy and fun. But for all of our things on Secret Friends, go to at Secret Friends U on Twitter, secretfriendsunite.com. Go to our Patreon. Patreon.com/Secret Friends Unite. And YouTube, just look up Secret Friends Unite on YouTube. We'd love it if you rated us on our podcast, subscribe on our YouTube content, and also check out our Patreon, see if there's anything you like there, and support us either financially or let people know all about our stuff that we do. We'd appreciate it. And remember, folks, be the hero, not the villain.
This podcast is part of the Secret Friends Unite podcasting network. Visit secretfriendsunite.com for more great shows, articles, news, reviews, and more. Secret Friends Unite podcasts are available on Apple, Google, Spotify, and other podcast services around the world. If you'd like to be part of the conversation, you can join us on Facebook or our new Discord server, or follow at Secret Friends U on Twitter. Please subscribe to Secret Friends Unite on YouTube and visit our merch store at tpublic.com.